Austin Riley is officially done for the season. Reynaldo López is not done being a starter, and Cal Quantrill's done with the Marlins, having been grabbed off waivers by the Braves and stuck in the rotation for this weekend. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Friday, August 22nd. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. We're proudly part of the Bleav Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, BravesToday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Ton of stuff to get to in today's show. Reynaldo López said that he wants to be a starter next year. He does not want to go into the bullpen. The Braves add a starting pitcher in Cal Quantrill while they made like 37 roster moves yesterday. But first, Austin Riley is officially done for the year. So he's had two different injured list stints this year, both for an abdominal issue, right? So the first one, he ends up going down shortly before the All-Star break. Okay, he comes out of the first game against St. Louis in that final series. He's 1 for 2 with the run scored on an RBI. He comes out in the fourth inning, goes on the IL, doesn't make it back until the 25th. So it's like 2 weeks, right? It's not terrible absence. But when he comes back, he doesn't really look like himself. He goes 0 for 11. He's hitless in Texas, has a good series against the Royals, and then in the Speedway Classic, makes a diving attempt in the rain on Saturday, and then on Sunday makes a diving tag at the plate and kind of re-aggravates the thing. Between Saturday and then Sunday, he re-aggravates it, goes on the injured list again. And the Braves announced that yesterday he had core injury surgery. That's what they're calling it. It's a sports hernia. David O'Brien of The Athletic confirmed it's a sports hernia, but they're calling it core injury surgery. He saw Dr. William Myers in Philadelphia. Dr. Myers is considered one of the foremost abdominal injury experts in sports medicine, right? Like there's a bunch of guys who specialize in one specific thing. Dr. Neil Elatrache in Los Angeles is the knee guy. That's who Ronald went for his torn ACL. One of the prominent Tommy John and elbow injury surgeons right now is Dr. Keith Meister in Dallas. So the Braves are using the best possible doctor for these things. And it's frustrating that it took this long for them to figure out what was going on, right? That he had a sports hernia. But ultimately, it's a good thing that they're getting it fixed, right? And if you look at what Austin Riley did this season prior to the injury, you can see that he was having a good season, not a great season, okay? So going all the way to that Cardinals game that he came out of, 93 total games, 274 average with a 764 OPS, slug of only 441, 14 home runs, 48 RBI in there. So a 162 game pace of 25 homers and 84 RBI. And almost 200 strikeouts. He had 113 strikeouts in 93 games. It was on pace for 197. And I am perfectly fine, obviously, with them shutting down Austin Riley. Because the goal here, this is the second straight season now that he has ended his season early because of injury. Last year was an injury that was put on him, right? He was hit by a pitch, broke his hand. That's why he missed last year. But it is imperative, and I've talked about this before, it's imperative that they get him right. Because this is a different Braves team when you have the 6-WAR silver slugging candidate, Austin Riley. You know, MVP, top 7 MVP finisher, Austin Riley. And the version that you've had the last 2 seasons. So from 21 through 23, He actually led the National League, or I think tied, in games played in 21 with 160. And across those 3 seasons, it's a 286 average, a 525 slug. He had 108 homers, so he averaged 36 a season. And I think he had 99 RBI per season. It was a 162 game pace of 101 RBI. That version of Austin Riley, right, where his OPS plus is 130, 135, 140. Again, he was a Silver Slugger twice in that stretch. He was an All-Star twice in that stretch, and a top 7 MVP finisher. That version of Austin Riley makes the Braves as good as they are. The last 2 seasons, you've not had that version. Across these 2 years, his combined average is 258. It's a 760 OPS. It's a 110 OPS plus. He's hit a total of 35 homers, so 17.5 per season, and a 162 game average of 27 with a pace of 84 RBI per year. Again, if he played a full season, he didn't in either one. He went from 3 consecutive 6+ WAR seasons, according to the Baseball Reference WAR, which is not the best WAR, I know, but to 2.9 last year and 1.3 this year. So let's get Austin Riley right. I hope that, this is supposed to be a shorter recovery period. He's going to mostly have a standard spring training. I think somebody said this is like a 6 or 8 week injury rehab. So he'll have a mostly standard offseason, and he'll have a fully standard spring, barring another injury. And it's crucial that Atlanta gets him back to the guy that he can be, and has been when he got that extension. And in the meantime, the winners here on this, Nacho Alvarez and Ozzie Albies. Let me explain. So Nacho Alvarez, obviously, he stays up in the majors. Right? He's not been the best hitter this year. He's hitting 247 in the majors, right? Which is better than he was doing before. 638 OPS. It's only a 309 slug. He still does not have a homer in the majors. And he's really shown a lot of struggles. He's not shown who we thought he was going to be as a high contact, high on base guy, right? But in the last week, the last 6 games, he's really kind of found a groove. 2 multi-hit games there. He has 3 in the month of August, but 2 multi-hit games in the last week. He's 8 for 24. I'm sorry, 8 for 22 technically, because he also had 2 walks in there. A double, 4 RBI, 4 runs, 2 walks to 3 strikeouts. It's an 826 OPS. He's the real winner, one, because he stays up in the majors, and he's playing his primary position. We get to see how he can do. Can he get better against hitting fastballs, major league fastballs? Can he be more comfortable offensively? Because the thought process was he might not be the best defender, but he's going to be able to give you good offense. And it's been the flip side here, right? He's been a good defender at third base, but he's not hitting. Again, he's been a little bit better in the last week. And even if you just take this for the entire month of August, right? The entire month of August, I Bleav he's hitting I think it's 275. That's right. Yeah, 275. His slug's only 353. He has 14 hits. 4 of them are doubles. 6 RBI, 9 runs in the month. Less than 1 strikeout a game. So even in the month of August, he's got a little bit more comfortable. And you have to remember, he missed a bunch of time because of a wrist injury. So maybe the power is going to come back in a little bit when he gets farther away from that wrist injury. That's a talking point with Ozzie. We'll get to that in a second. So it's big for Nacho Alvarez because he gets to stay in the majors. Obviously, he's making the major league paycheck, and he gets playing time in the bigs. He's going to lose rookie eligibility, but at this point, I don't think anybody expects Nacho Alvarez to be a Rookie of the Year candidate next year, so not a big deal. The other winner of this is Ozzie Albies, believe it or not, because Ozzie, I think we're all kind of, yes, the Braves are going to pick up that club option, right? $7 million option, but the buyout's $4 million. They weren't going to try to save $3 million by getting rid of Ozzie Albies. They were going to pick up the option for $7 million. But now, unless they add in the offseason at the position, Ozzie Albies is not only still the favorite to be the second baseman next year, but you don't have the information on can Nacho Alvarez play second. He didn't look great defensively last year. And when they sent him back down the first time, so after Riley was hurt, when they sent him back down to Gwinnett, he spent a week in Gwinnett. He spent 7 games in Gwinnett, longer than a week, 7 games. All 7 games, he started at second base. Atlanta wanted to see what Nacho Alvarez could do defensively at second base. It tracks that was them trying to see, is he a viable option at second base next year? And shameless plug for the newsletter over here, contributor Gray Cole wrote a piece, I Bleav it was on Wednesday. It came out Wednesday morning, about some of Atlanta's options at second base, assuming that as Ozzie gets farther away from the wrist injury that ended his year last year, or that messed with his year last year, that he doesn't return back to the player that he was. He's gotten better in the second half. He could be that guy. Gray went through some of the options if he's not that guy. If this version of Ozzie Albies we have now is the version of Ozzie Albies he is at best going forward, what options do you have? And Nacho Alvarez was the primary one, but again, the Braves aren't going to have any sort of extended sample size of what Nacho looks like at second base, because Nacho's probably going to stay up in the majors the rest of the year playing third for Atlanta. So it'll be free agent market and or trades. We'll see what happens. In just a second, let's talk about Cal Quantrill. The Braves added him on waivers and then stuck him in the rotation for the weekend during the Mets. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. And we're going to talk about Cal Quantrill joining the Braves, because this is a really interesting decision by Atlanta. So, little bit, just so you know who Cal Quantrill is, 30 years old. He's out of Canada. So you got a couple Canadian guys now, or at least Northern guys in your thing. Drake Baldwin's from, I think it's Wisconsin. He's a hockey guy. You've got David McCabe in AAA, who's listed as a third baseman. I don't think he's very good defensively at third base, but he's listed as a third baseman. That could be an option. We'll see a little bit in place of Nacho if they want to give Nacho some run at second. But drafted in the first round in 2016 by the Padres, and really has never been the guy that they thought he was going to be. He had a couple good years in Cleveland. 2021 is a 2.89 ERA and 149 2/3 innings. 22 starts, 40 total appearances, so back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. 2022, a full season of starting for Cleveland, 32 games, 186 1/3 innings, 3.38 ERA. After that, ERA over 5 in 23, was in Colorado in 24, an ERA just under 5 in 29 starts, led the National League in walks, very nice 69 walks that year. And then this year for Miami, 4-10 with a 5.50 ERA in 24 starts, 109 2/3 innings. He struck out 82 in 109 2/3. He's walked 30, and he's given up 17 home runs. He gives up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. So in essence, every start, he's pretty much guaranteed to give up a homer on average here. The Braves have seen him, right? He faced the Braves on August 10th in Truist Park. Braves won this 7-1, but it's not because what they did against Cal Quantrill. He held the Braves to 1 run on 3 hits across 4 innings. No walks, got a strikeout. The 1 run he gave up was a solo shot by Matt Olson. But like, he's been pretty decent against the Braves, the time that he saw them this year. And in his 2 starts combined against Atlanta, 9 innings, 7 hits, 1 run, no walks to 5 strikeouts. I guess this is one of those, if you can't beat him, claim him off waivers, right? He's going to go into the rotation for the weekend. He is now the Saturday starter against the Mets. And the problem with that is he's not been very good against the Mets. They saw him once this year. It was to open the season in the 5th game of the year. He gave up 6 runs on 8 hits in 4 innings. 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, hit a guy with a pitch, gave up 2 home runs. But that's the only time they've seen that. Like, it's a completely different everything. It's been so long since then. So it's kind of hard to be like, yeah, you're absolutely going to get blasted on Saturday. Although they were successful last time they saw him. And what this is about, this is just innings. You need to cover innings. The Braves updated the rotation here. They bumped Bryce Elder from Saturday to Sunday. So Quantrill's now on Saturday. There's going to be a ton of walks in that game, by the way. Cal Quantrill, Clay Holmes, both guys walk a ton. And then Spencer Strider, who was going to be Sunday's starter, I'm assuming is bumped to Monday. They could be skipping Strider. We don't actually know. I'm assuming he is just being bumped to Monday. We won't find out the rotation for next week until Sunday morning when the Braves put out game notes that morning. They send to us, on the media mailing list. They have the rotation for the next series in the bottom of that. So we won't actually know until Sunday, is Strider going to start on Monday, or is he just getting skipped this time? We'll see what happens. But, the corresponding move for claiming Cal Quantrill and reporting him was sending Dane Dunning back to AAA. So they optioned him back down. Jake Fraley also joined the team, and that was Luke Williams going on the injured list. I did the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta fundraiser where you pay for a random signed ball, and I got Luke Williams. So I have a signature on a baseball of the greatest 2-way player in Atlanta Braves history, or in MLB history, really. And then the other move here was Connor Siebold being optioned down and Dylan Dodd coming back up. But back to Quantrill. So what he does, and what I think Atlanta's going to maybe do with him down the stretch, because he is a pending free agent after this year, but if he likes it in Atlanta, if they can fix him, you can always bring him back as affordable depth. A lot of the guys they have claimed or traded for or whatever, whether it's Joey Wentz, whether it's a Dane Dunning, whether it's a Tyler Kenley, and now Cal Quantrill, are either guys who have additional control, like Wentz and Dunning, or it's a guy that has been not good, and if they can get him back to what he was, maybe he re-signs it on a value deal and they get some excess value there. So what he does, it is a 6-pitch mix. I'm not counting the changeup. He's thrown 5 of them all year. I'm not counting that in this grouping. But he throws all four fastballs, cutter, 4-seam, sinker. He sits in the 93 or so on average with the 4-seam and the sinker. He sits around 89 with the cutter. That's typical. And he's really kind of working vertically. So the 2 things that he does, because with those 3, he also has a splitter, a curveball, and a slider. And so there's 2 distinct groupings on the pitch plot. Close to even, just barely on the glove side, moving towards the first base side, is the cutter, the slider, the curveball. Cutter's up top, slider's kind of the bridge pitch there, and the curveball. The curveball doesn't move horizontally as much as most curveballs, but it drops pretty well. Slider doesn't have a ton of horizontal movement. It's a little bit below average on that as well. And so cutter, slider, curveball makes a really great pairing with the slider being the bridge pitch, which is a little different from how you typically see these things work. And then the other thing is four-seam, sinker, splitter. They're all in a similar place on the pitch plot. He doesn't get as much drop on his splitter as a lot of guys do. But the idea here is four-seam, splitter, and then the sinker runs towards the third base side off of the two. So he can theoretically miss some bats with the sinker and get weak contact. He can drop a splitter below you after establishing with the four-seamer. It's interesting. And knowing how Atlanta likes to tweak these guys, my first thought when I look at these pitches and what he does is I like the slider. It's got more vertical drop. The four-seamer has more horizontal movement than average. So does the sinker. And the splitter doesn't drop as much as I'd love, but it has some of that horizontal too, a little better than average. And so what I think the game plan is going to be here is going to be to ramp up the slider usage. Not ridiculous, right? But he's getting good velocity on it. It's close to 85 miles an hour, which I've told you before. A gyro style slider, which is kind of what this is. A gyro style slider at 85 or harder, it's really difficult to be bad when you're throwing at 85 miles an hour or harder, right? So I think the game plan here is going to be ramp up the slider usage a bit. I mean, right now, it is his sixth most frequently thrown pitch. He throws it 9% of the time. The immediate adjustment I am making is you throw the slider more. So it'll be whichever fastball you're using that day with the splitter and the slider. You drop a curveball below the slider. There is a path to make him better. But let's be honest, this is about innings. You need to cover innings. And they are trying to do that. My next thought is either Eric Fedde is gone, Bryce Elder's going back to AAA, or Spencer Strider's going on the IL. I don't know if they're going to keep running this type of rotation for a while. Chris Sale should be back sometime soon. So my thought process is they're grabbing Cal Quantrill, see if it works out. Eric Fedde may be the odd man out here. Again, he may go to either long relief. He may be DFA'd. This could be something. Bryce Elder could be sent down. Strider, I don't think they're going to option him down. They've never used a minor league option on him, by the way. But maybe he goes on the IL. I don't know what the plan is here. Maybe they just skip him and they keep an extra starter up. I'm not sure. But the point is, they need innings. That's why they grab Cal Quantrill. There's a path to make him better. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, right? I mean, he probably is who he is, but he's been good at times in his past. Maybe the Braves can rediscover that. In just a second, let's talk about Reynaldo López, because we got an update from him yesterday about his desire to stay in the rotation next season versus moving back to the bullpen. We'll discuss that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby talking about Reynaldo López. Mark Bowman of MLB.com put out a tweet yesterday in response to his thing about Quantrill being claimed off waivers, the confirmation of the news that somebody else reported, because the Braves beat doesn't break news. And Bowman said in the follow-up, quote, "When I talked to López yesterday, he made it clear he wants to be a starter next year, has no desire to return as a reliever." And then the injury update is that López is throwing on flat ground, 150 feet or so. He's hoping to throw a live bullpen or two before the season ends. So he wants to get back to facing, to throwing a live bullpen before the season's over. But he wants to be a starter. And there's two ways to think about this, okay? The first option on this is it doesn't matter what he wants to do if he can't stay on the field. It's unfortunate to think of it that way, but that is one option here, is it doesn't matter what he wants to do. If he's not healthy, he's not helping the team at all. The other way to think of it is, while being in the bullpen could theoretically help keep him healthier by reducing the innings load on his arm, it's not what he wants to do. And a lot of managers, and again, we're going to have a new one next year, is the expectation. But a lot of managers like to defer to what these guys like to do, because when they are happy and when they are doing their thing, they tend to perform better. I don't know for sure whether or not a bullpen role would keep him healthier or not, right? I'm still a believer that the biggest things that hurt you is velocity, right? Throwing with as close to max effort as you can, the more pitches you do at closest to max effort, that's what hurts you in the long run. And López showed when he was a starter, he's like, in this most recent stretch, he's been very good about ramping up and down with velocity and effort when he needs to. I can't tell you how many times we saw in a start, people would be freaking out in the first inning because his fastball velo is like 93. And I'm like, take it easy. It's fine. And then there'd be a runner on second base in the 6th inning, and he knows this is his final inning, and he's pumping 98 to get the guy out. Like, you can tell he was a former reliever when you look at some of the stats around what he does, okay? His fastball velocity with runners, with the bases empty, is like 95.2. With runners on the entire season, it's like 95.6. With runners in scoring position, it's like 97. It's like 96 and change, and it rounds up to 97. Batting average allowed for opposing hitters with the bases empty for Reynaldo López is 261. Batting average with runners in scoring position is 090. This was last year, by the way, not this year. So he can be effective as a starter. And I personally think that if he is a starter next year, assuming he's healthy and in the rotation, which is two huge assumptions, right? Assuming he's healthy, you have a starting five as of now, assuming Grant Holmes does not make it back, and we don't know, assuming that AJ Smith-Shawver is out for the full year, which I personally am, just because he can get back doesn't mean he'll have the control and everything dialed into the point where they put him back in the majors right away. But your opening day rotation would be some order of Chris Sale, Spencer Strider, who I Bleav is going to be fine after a normal offseason, Spencer Schwellenbach, Reynaldo López, and as of now, my fifth is Herschel Waldrop. That is top to bottom, one of the best rotations in all of baseball. I would put that 1 through 5 up with anybody else in the league. Because you are comfortable throwing all 5 of those guys to start a playoff game if you needed to. I mean, would you have preferences? Yeah, I want Sale and Strider and Schwellenbach in like 1 through 3, but I don't have an issue with the first half of the season Reynaldo López we saw, the version of Herschel Waldrop we're seeing right now. I'd throw those guys in a playoff game too. And then outside of that, just looking at guys who have pitched in the majors and should be in the organization next year, barring a trade, Joey Wentz, Bryce Elder, Didier Fuentes, Dane Dunning, Davis Daniel, Ian Anderson. I don't know how you feel about Daniel and Anderson. Neither one's on the 40-man. Neither one's been that impressive as a starter this year, but you've got somewhere between 9 and 11 guys that you can pitch in the majors right there. And then you look at the prospects, right? You got a J.R. Ritchie, Blake Burkhalter, Giancarlos Lara, Ian Meha, maybe a Lucas Braun, a Drew Hackenberg, or whatever. Like, you can see how this team can get 13, 15 starters deep with potential options at some point in time next year. And I said this a ton. The Braves have used between 10 and 13 conventional starters in every year of the last 4 or 5. This year, they're at 13. Quantrill will be the 14th. And I went looking yesterday, and I didn't see another season in like the StatCast era where the Braves used more than 14 conventional, or even used more than 13 conventional starters. Shows you how injured they've been this year. This is a new high. But depending on how you feel about Daniel and Anderson, and depending on how you feel about some of the prospects like a Hackenberg or a Braun or whatever, you could have as little as 13 or as many as 17 potential starters next year. And so I feel like that gives you flexibility when you get to the offseason. I've talked on here before on the live shows on Friday, which, sorry, this one's not a live show. With the family stuff going on, I just wasn't able to do it. But I've been talking about I want you to grab 2 starters, right? Grab one of the big 4 of a Dylan Cease, Michael King, Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen, whatever. And then grab another guy to be a back-end inning eater kind of veteran, a Ranger Suarez, a Chris Bassett, an Andrew Heaney, something like that. But if you have, part of my assumption there was that Reynaldo López was going to be your closer, right? He's making something, I think he's making like $11 million next year, or $8 million next year. Yeah, he's making he's made $8 million this year, $11 million in 26, and $8 million in 27. And so My thought process was your 5th of your 5 starters is that free agent that you sign, that top-end free agent that you sign. And then the other guy, your first man up because of injury, which probably is going to come in spring training, it always does, is going to be the back-end inning eater guy. And all of your prospect depth is still in the minors to start the year. But if that was counting López being in the bullpen, if López is in the rotation, I feel like now you have options to get maybe 1 starter, and then you turn around and you spend money at closer, right? Do you see if you can fix a Devin Williams? Do you sign a Andre Munoz? Do you go get the velo and grab an Aroldis Chapman? What do you do? We're going to have a piece dropping over the weekend over at Braves Today from contributor Gray. He's going to give us some of the different relief options, maybe a possible trade, free agency guys. Do you bring back Iglesias? All that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. But I do feel like if he's healthy, and that's the massive if he's healthy, which I hope after a shoulder surgery, they fix the problem. Reynaldo López being in the rotation gives you a ton of options in free agency and multiple different paths to making the pitching staff better. We'll see what Atlanta does with it. This has been Braves Today for Friday, August 22nd. Do me a favor. You're listening on audio. Leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and then also check out BravesToday.com. That's the Substack, free or paid. Those memberships, those subscriptions help us out a ton. They help me pay for contributors like Gray. They help me bring you all kind of cool stuff that we're trying to do on the channel. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.